Question 1. The assessment process reveals that a critical piece of deleted data, potentially implicating a suspect in a high-profile cybercrime, resides on a suspect's hard drive. The prosecution is pressuring for immediate recovery to build their case. The forensic investigator has the technical capability to attempt recovery directly from the suspect's drive, which might be faster, but also carries a significant risk of altering or destroying the very data they are trying to retrieve. Alternatively, the investigator can create a forensically sound image of the drive first, a process that takes more time but ensures the original evidence remains untouched. What is the most ethically and legally sound course of action for the forensic investigator? Option A. Prioritize the prosecution's request for speed and attempt recovery directly from the suspect's drive, documenting the process as best as possible. Option B. Directly attempt to recover the deleted data from the suspect's hard drive to expedite the investigation. Option C. Share the suspect's hard drive with the prosecution team for their own recovery attempts to speed up the process. Option D. Create a forensically sound image of the suspect's hard drive before attempting any data recovery. Correct answer is D. Create a forensically sound image of the suspect's hard drive before attempting any data recovery. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common ethical dilemma in digital forensics: the conflict between the urgency of a criminal investigation and the need for meticulous, legally sound evidence preservation. In this scenario, the investigator is tasked with recovering deleted data that could be crucial to a high-profile case. The challenge lies in balancing the pressure to act quickly with the absolute requirement to maintain the integrity of the digital evidence. Any deviation from established forensic procedures, even with good intentions, can render the evidence inadmissible in court, jeopardizing the entire investigation and potentially allowing a perpetrator to escape justice. This situation demands a deep understanding of the legal and ethical obligations of a forensic investigator, particularly concerning evidence handling and chain of custody. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established forensic protocols and legal requirements. This involves documenting every step taken, using forensically sound tools and techniques to create an exact replica of the original media, a forensic image, and ensuring that the original evidence is not altered in any way during the acquisition process. This meticulous approach is mandated by the principles of digital forensics and is crucial for maintaining the admissibility of evidence in legal proceedings. It aligns with the ECCouncil's emphasis on ethical conduct and the legal framework governing digital evidence, ensuring that the recovered data can withstand scrutiny in court. An incorrect approach would be to directly access and attempt to recover the deleted data from the original drive without creating a forensic image. This action directly violates the principle of preserving the original evidence. By interacting with the drive, the investigator risks overriding the very data they are trying to recover, as well as other potentially relevant information. This failure to maintain the integrity of the original evidence would likely lead to the exclusion of any recovered data in court, as it would be considered tainted. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard chain of custody procedures, perhaps by sharing the original drive or the recovered data with unauthorized personnel before proper documentation and secure transfer. This compromises the integrity and authenticity of the evidence, making it unreliable for legal purposes. Professionals facing such dilemmas should employ a structured decision-making process. First, they must identify the core ethical and legal obligations relevant to the situation. Second, they should consult established forensic best practices and organizational policies. Third, they should consider the potential consequences of each course of action, particularly regarding evidence admissibility and the integrity of the investigation. Finally, they should choose the path that upholds the highest standards of professional conduct and legal compliance, even if it means taking more time or facing pressure to expedite the process. Question 2. Process analysis reveals that a critical server has been compromised, exhibiting unusual network traffic and exhibiting signs of unauthorized access. The system administrator is concerned about losing volatile data. As the forensic investigator, what is the immediate and most crucial step to ensure the integrity of potential evidence? Option A. Directly analyze the live system for running processes and network connections. Option B. Begin reviewing system logs for suspicious entries without first securing the system. Option C. Attempt to recover deleted files from the live system's file system. Option D. Create a bit-for-bit forensic image of the affected server's storage media. The correct answer is D. Create a bit-for-bit forensic image of the affected server's storage media. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics: the potential for evidence to be altered or compromised during the initial seizure and examination. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of preserving volatile data with the need to maintain the integrity of the evidence according to established forensic principles and legal standards. The investigator must act decisively yet meticulously, ensuring that every action taken is justifiable and defensible in a legal context. The potential for data loss or corruption, coupled with the requirement to adhere to strict legal procedures, demands careful judgment and a thorough understanding of forensic best practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately creating a forensic image of the affected system. This is paramount because it creates an exact, bit-for-bit copy of the original storage media. This process ensures that the original evidence remains untouched, preserving its integrity for subsequent analysis. The forensic image serves as the primary artifact for investigation, allowing multiple analysts to work on it without risking alteration of the original data. This aligns with the fundamental principle of do no harm in digital forensics and is a cornerstone of admissibility of evidence in legal proceedings, as mandated by the principles of evidence handling and chain of custody, which are implicitly governed by the legal frameworks that the CHFI certification prepares individuals to navigate. Incorrect approaches analysis. Directly analyzing the live system without creating a forensic image is a critical failure. This approach risks altering volatile data, such as running processes, network connections, and temporary files, which can be crucial for understanding the nature of the compromise. Such alteration would severely undermine the integrity of the evidence, making it inadmissible in court and compromising the entire investigation. This violates the core tenets of digital forensics and the legal requirements for presenting untainted evidence. Attempting to recover deleted files directly from the live system without imaging is also problematic. While file recovery is a common forensic task, performing it on a live system can overwrite the very data being sought or alter file system metadata, further compromising the evidence. The proper procedure is to perform recovery operations on a forensic image. This approach fails to adhere to the principle of preserving the original state of the evidence, ignoring the potential for volatile data, and proceeding directly to a less critical aspect of the investigation, such as reviewing system logs without first securing the system state, is also an unacceptable deviation. Volatile data can disappear rapidly, and failing to capture it at the earliest opportunity means losing potentially vital clues about the intrusion's timeline and methods. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the urgency and priority required in handling compromised systems. Professional reasoning. Professionals in digital forensics must adopt a systematic and principled approach. The decision-making process should prioritize evidence integrity and legal admissibility. This involves 1. Immediate assessment of the situation to identify potential evidence and the need for preservation. 2. Prioritizing the acquisition of volatile data through methods like forensic imaging. 3. Documenting every step taken, including the tools used and the time of execution, to maintain a robust chain of custody. 4. Conducting all subsequent analysis on forensically acquired copies of the evidence, never on the original media. 5. Understanding and adhering to the legal and ethical guidelines governing digital evidence in the relevant jurisdiction. Question 3. Investigation of a potential data exfiltration incident requires forensic examination of a suspect's cloud storage account. The suspect is a U.S. citizen, and the investigation is being conducted within the United States. The incident is time-sensitive, as the exfiltrated data may be further disseminated. What is the most appropriate initial step for the forensic investigator to take to legally and ethically access the suspect's cloud storage? Option A. Contact the cloud service provider with a subpoena to compel them to provide access to the suspect's account data. Option B. Obtain a legally valid search warrant from a competent authority to search the suspect's cloud storage account. Option C. Proceed with accessing the suspect's cloud storage based on the urgency of the situation and the potential for data loss, assuming exigent circumstances. Option D. Request the suspect's voluntary, written consent to access their cloud storage account for forensic examination. The correct answer is B. Obtain a legally valid search warrant from a competent authority to search the suspect's cloud storage account. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the need for rapid evidence preservation and the legal requirements for obtaining and handling digital evidence. The investigator must balance the urgency of securing volatile data with the strict protocols mandated by the relevant legal framework to ensure the evidence's admissibility in court. Failure to adhere to these protocols can render the evidence useless and potentially lead to legal repercussions for the investigator and the organization. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integrity of the investigation by adhering to the established legal and procedural guidelines for digital evidence handling. This includes proper documentation, chain of custody, and authorized access, all of which are critical for maintaining the evidence's authenticity and reliability. Following these established procedures, as dictated by the relevant U.S. federal laws and guidelines applicable to digital forensics investigations, ensures that the evidence collected can withstand legal scrutiny. An incorrect approach that involves immediate, unauthorized access to the suspect's personal cloud storage without a warrant or proper legal authorization is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This violates the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and potentially infringes upon privacy laws. Such an action would render any evidence obtained inadmissible and could lead to civil or criminal penalties. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on the suspect's verbal consent to access their cloud data without documenting the consent process or obtaining it in writing, is also professionally unacceptable. Consent can be a valid basis for search. The lack of proper documentation and authorization makes it difficult to prove consent was freely and voluntarily given, and it fails to establish a clear chain of custody for the accessed data. This can lead to challenges regarding the voluntariness of the consent and the integrity of the evidence. A third incorrect approach, which involves sharing the collected cloud data with unauthorized personnel within the organization before a formal review and analysis is complete, constitutes a breach of confidentiality and data security protocols. This can violate privacy regulations and compromise the integrity of the investigation by potentially exposing sensitive information prematurely or allowing for tampering. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the applicable legal framework, including search and seizure laws, privacy regulations, and evidence handling guidelines. Investigators must always seek proper legal authorization, such as a warrant, before accessing sensitive digital information. When consent is obtained, it must be documented meticulously, and the scope of the consent must be clearly defined. Maintaining an unbroken chain of custody and ensuring data integrity throughout the investigation are paramount. If there is any ambiguity regarding legal requirements or ethical considerations, consulting with legal counsel is essential. Question 4. What factors determine the most appropriate method for acquiring digital evidence in a scenario involving potential ongoing criminal activity, ensuring its admissibility and integrity within the framework of U.S. federal digital forensic guidelines? Option A. The speed at which evidence can be collected, prioritizing immediate access to information over the preservation of the original state of the digital device. Option B. The urgency of the situation, the type of digital media involved, and the potential for evidence volatility, balanced against the need for a forensically sound acquisition process that preserves the original evidence. Option C. The personal experience of the investigator with similar cases, allowing for ad hoc evidence collection methods based on intuition. Option D. The convenience of the acquisition method, choosing the easiest and quickest way to obtain data regardless of its forensic soundness or potential impact on the original evidence. The correct answer is B. The urgency of the situation, the type of digital media involved, and the potential for evidence volatility, balanced against the need for a forensically sound acquisition process that preserves the original evidence. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the need for rapid evidence acquisition and the imperative to maintain the integrity and admissibility of that evidence. Forensic investigators must navigate a complex landscape where haste can compromise legal standing, and meticulousness can delay critical findings. The core difficulty lies in balancing the urgency of a potential ongoing threat with the strict procedural requirements of digital forensics, ensuring that any collected data can withstand scrutiny in a legal or disciplinary context. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, documented, and legally defensible methodology. This involves adhering to established forensic principles, such as the chain of custody, proper evidence handling, and the use of forensically sound tools and techniques. By meticulously documenting every step, from initial seizure to analysis and reporting, the investigator creates a transparent and verifiable record. This aligns with the principles of digital forensics as outlined in relevant guidelines and best practices, ensuring that the evidence is reliable and admissible. The focus on preserving the original evidence and creating forensic images before any analysis is crucial for maintaining data integrity and preventing allegations of tampering. An incorrect approach that involves immediate analysis of the live system without creating a forensic image fails to uphold the integrity of the original evidence. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it risks altering or destroying volatile data that might be crucial for the investigation. Such actions can lead to the exclusion of evidence in legal proceedings, undermining the entire investigative effort and potentially allowing a perpetrator to evade accountability. Furthermore, it violates the fundamental principle of preserving the original state of the digital evidence. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on anecdotal observations or non-forensic tools for evidence collection, represents a critical failure to adhere to professional standards. This approach lacks the rigor and verifiability required for digital evidence. It is ethically unsound as it introduces subjectivity and unreliability, making the findings questionable. From a regulatory standpoint, it bypasses established protocols for evidence handling, rendering the collected information inadmissible and potentially exposing the investigator and their organization to legal repercussions. A third incorrect approach, which involves sharing raw, unanalyzed data with stakeholders without proper sanitization or context, also constitutes a regulatory and ethical failure. This can lead to misinterpretation of data, disclosure of sensitive information beyond the scope of the investigation, and potential contamination of the evidence. It bypasses the crucial step of expert analysis and reporting, which is essential for presenting findings in a clear, accurate, and legally appropriate manner. This lack of controlled dissemination can compromise the investigation and violate privacy or confidentiality requirements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the legal and ethical obligations governing digital forensics. Investigators must first assess the nature of the incident and the potential for evidence volatility. They should then consult and strictly follow established forensic procedures and guidelines relevant to the jurisdiction. Documenting all actions, maintaining a strict chain of custody, and utilizing forensically sound tools are paramount. If there is any doubt about the correct procedure, seeking guidance from senior investigators or legal counsel is a critical step in ensuring that the investigation proceeds ethically and legally. Question 5. When evaluating a potential data breach involving sensitive customer information and initial indicators suggest unauthorized access to a critical server, what is the most appropriate initial forensic action to take to ensure evidence integrity and legal admissibility? Option A. Initiate a system-wide search for malware and vulnerabilities across all connected systems to preemptively address any potential spread. Option B. Proceed with an immediate in-depth analysis of the server's logs and running processes to quickly identify the source and extent of the unauthorized access. Option C. Immediately disconnect the suspected server from the network and create a forensic image of its storage devices before any further analysis or system interaction. Option D. Contact the affected customers directly to inform them of the potential breach and gather their accounts of suspicious activity. The correct answer is C. Immediately disconnect the suspected server from the network and create a forensic image of its storage devices before any further analysis or system interaction. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the urgency of a potential data breach and the need for meticulous, legally sound forensic procedures. The investigator must balance the immediate need to contain and understand the incident with the long-term implications of evidence integrity and admissibility. Failure to adhere to established protocols can render crucial evidence useless in legal proceedings, and expose the organization to significant penalties. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic, documented process that prioritizes evidence preservation and chain of custody, aligning with the principles of digital forensics and the legal frameworks governing evidence. This approach ensures that any findings are defensible and can withstand scrutiny in a court of law. It reflects best professional practice by adhering to established methodologies that are recognized and accepted within the digital forensics community and by legal systems. An incorrect approach that bypasses established procedures, such as immediately wiping or altering the suspected compromised system without proper imaging and documentation, constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action directly violates the principles of evidence preservation, potentially destroying critical data that could identify the attacker, the scope of the breach, or the methods used. Such a failure could lead to the inadmissibility of any subsequent findings, hinder law enforcement investigations, and result in severe legal repercussions for the organization, including fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on anecdotal information or assumptions without conducting thorough forensic analysis, also represents a failure. This bypasses the requirement for objective, verifiable evidence, leading to potentially flawed conclusions and an inadequate response to the security incident. Ethically, it fails to uphold the duty of diligence and competence expected of a forensic investigator. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the incident's potential impact and legal obligations. This involves consulting relevant incident response plans and legal counsel. The framework then dictates a methodical approach. Secure the scene, identify and preserve evidence, imaging volatile data first, then non-volatile, document every step meticulously, analyze the preserved evidence using validated tools and techniques, and report findings clearly and objectively. This structured process ensures that all actions are justifiable, legally compliant, and contribute to a robust and defensible investigation. Question 6. Stakeholder feedback indicates a recent security incident has potentially compromised sensitive customer data. The IT department has provided a preliminary report suggesting the breach may have originated from a phishing attack targeting a specific department. As the lead forensic investigator, what is the most appropriate initial step in assessing the risks associated with this incident to guide your investigative strategy? Option A. Conduct a rapid assessment of critical business functions and data assets potentially impacted by the breach to prioritize investigative actions and containment efforts. Option B. Initiate a full forensic imaging of all servers and workstations within the organization to ensure no evidence is missed, regardless of initial impact assessment. Option C. Immediately isolate all network segments associated with the affected department to prevent further data exfiltration and evidence tampering. Option D. Begin a detailed analysis of the phishing email content and sender to understand the attack vector before considering any containment or impact assessment. The correct answer is C. Immediately isolate all network segments associated with the affected department to prevent further data exfiltration and evidence tampering. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics, balancing the need for thorough investigation with the imperative to minimize disruption and maintain operational continuity. Stakeholders, particularly those in business operation, often have a vested interest in rapid resolution and minimal impact on their daily activities. The forensic investigator must navigate these competing priorities, ensuring that the investigation is both comprehensive and efficient, without compromising the integrity of the evidence or the business's ability to function. The pressure to deliver quick results, coupled with the potential for significant business impact, requires a strategic and well-justified approach to risk assessment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment that prioritizes actions based on their potential impact on business operations and the criticality of the data or systems involved. This aligns with best professional practices in digital forensics, which emphasize a structured methodology. By identifying critical assets and potential threats, the investigator can develop a plan that mitigates risks effectively. This approach ensures that resources are allocated efficiently, focusing on the most significant threats and vulnerabilities first. It also demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to responsible investigation, which is implicitly supported by the principles of professional conduct expected of a CHFI, aiming to preserve evidence while minimizing collateral damage. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately isolate all affected systems without a prior assessment of their criticality. This can lead to unnecessary downtime for essential business functions, causing significant financial losses and operational disruption. Such an action, without justification, could be seen as unprofessional and potentially violate implicit agreements to minimize business impact. Another incorrect approach is to delay any significant action until a full, detailed risk assessment is completed, which could allow evidence to be altered or destroyed, compromising the investigation. This failure to act promptly in the face of potential evidence loss is a dereliction of duty. Finally, focusing solely on the technical aspects of the breach without considering the business context and stakeholder concerns is also a flawed approach. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the broader implications of the incident and can lead to solutions that are technically sound but operationally impractical or damaging. Professional reasoning. Professionals in digital forensics should adopt a phased approach to risk assessment. This begins with an initial understanding of the incident and its potential scope. Subsequently, a rapid assessment of critical assets and potential impacts should be conducted. Based on this assessment, a prioritized plan of action is developed, which may involve containment, eradication, and recovery strategies. Throughout the process, clear and consistent communication with stakeholders is paramount, managing expectations and providing updates on progress and potential impacts. This iterative process allows for flexibility and adaptation as new information emerges, ensuring that the investigation remains effective and minimizes adverse effects on the organization. Question 7. The performance metrics show a significant increase in unauthorized network access attempts originating from an external IP address, indicating a potential ongoing intrusion. As the lead forensic investigator, your primary objective is to contain the threat and preserve evidence for potential legal action. Which of the following actions best balances the immediate need for containment with the imperative of maintaining evidence integrity according to standard U.S. forensic practices? Option A. Initiate an immediate analysis of the live system's running processes and network connections to identify the attacker's current activities. Option B. Modify system logs on the affected server to block the malicious IP address and prevent further intrusion attempts. Option C. Create a forensically sound image of the affected server's storage media before taking any containment actions, and then perform containment and analysis on the image. Option D. Immediately disconnect the affected server from the network to prevent further unauthorized access, and then begin an investigation on the live system. The correct answer is D. Immediately disconnect the affected server from the network to prevent further unauthorized access, and then begin an investigation on the live system. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics where the integrity of evidence is paramount, but the urgency of a security incident necessitates swift action. The tension lies between the need to preserve evidence in its original state for legal admissibility and the operational requirement to contain and mitigate a live threat. A forensic investigator must balance these competing demands, understanding that improper handling can render evidence inadmissible or compromise ongoing security operations. The professional challenge is to execute a containment strategy that minimizes data alteration while still effectively addressing the security breach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased response that prioritizes evidence preservation while enabling necessary containment. This aligns with the principles of digital forensics and the legal standards for evidence handling, particularly within the U.S. regulatory framework that the CHFI certification implicitly addresses through its focus on common legal and ethical practices in cybersecurity investigation. The initial step of creating a forensic image of the affected system before any containment actions are taken is crucial. This forensic image serves as an exact, bit-for-bit replica of the original drive, ensuring that all original data, including volatile information, is preserved. Subsequent containment actions are then performed on the forensic image or a sanitized environment, leaving the original evidence untouched. This meticulous process ensures that the evidence can be presented in court without any doubt regarding its integrity, adhering to chain of custody principles and admissibility standards. This approach is best professional practice because it upholds the integrity of the investigation and the admissibility of evidence, which are fundamental to legal proceedings and regulatory compliance in the U.S. Incorrect approach is analysis, directly isolating the affected system by disconnecting it from the network without first creating a forensic image, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action, while seemingly a quick containment measure, directly alters the state of the original evidence. Volatile data, such as active network connections, running processes, and in-memory data, which can be critical for understanding the nature and scope of the attack, would be lost. This violates the principle of preserving evidence in its original state and compromises the chain of custody, potentially rendering the evidence inadmissible in a U.S. court of law. Modifying system logs or configuration files on the live system to prevent further malicious activity before imaging is another critical failure. Such modifications, even with good intentions, constitute tampering with evidence. This directly violates the integrity of the original data and would be viewed as a severe ethical breach and a violation of legal standards for evidence handling in the U.S. It undermines the entire investigation and any subsequent legal proceedings. Proceeding with an immediate analysis of the live system to identify the attacker's methods without creating a forensic image first is also professionally unacceptable. While understanding the attacker's techniques is important, performing analysis directly on the live system can inadvertently alter data, overwrite logs, or change timestamps, thereby corrupting the evidence. This approach disregards the fundamental forensic principle of non-alteration of the original evidence, leading to potential inadmissibility and ethical concerns. Professional reasoning. In situations involving potential evidence, a digital forensic investigator must adopt a systematic and methodical approach. The decision-making process should prioritize the preservation of evidence integrity above all else, followed by effective incident response. This involves understanding the legal and regulatory requirements for evidence handling within the relevant jurisdiction, in this case, implicitly U.S. standards. A tiered approach, starting with imaging, then containment and analysis on the image, ensures that the original evidence remains pristine for legal scrutiny. When faced with conflicting priorities, the investigator must document all actions taken, the rationale behind them, and any potential impact on the evidence. This documentation is crucial for maintaining the chain of custody and defending the integrity of the investigation. Question 8. The audit findings indicate a potential compromise of sensitive customer data due to an unpatched vulnerability in a web server. The IT department has proposed immediately applying the patch and restoring the server from a recent backup to mitigate further damage. As the lead forensic investigator, which of the following actions is the most appropriate initial response to ensure a thorough and legally defensible investigation? Option A. Create forensic images of the affected server and relevant network devices before any remediation or restoration activities are performed. Option B. Begin analyzing the web server's application logs for suspicious activity without creating forensic images first. Option C. Immediately apply the security patch to the web server to prevent further exploitation and then proceed with restoring from backup. Option D. Instruct the IT department to restore the server from the most recent clean backup without delay to minimize data loss. The correct answer is A. Create forensic images of the affected server and relevant network devices before any remediation or restoration activities are performed. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential compromise of sensitive customer data due to an unpatched vulnerability in a web server. This scenario presents a significant professional challenge for a forensic investigator because it requires not only technical expertise in identifying the root cause and extent of the breach, but also a deep understanding of legal and regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and breach notification. The investigator must act swiftly and meticulously to preserve evidence, contain the incident, and provide accurate information for potential legal proceedings and regulatory reporting, all while adhering to strict chain of custody protocols. The correct approach involves a systematic forensic investigation that prioritizes evidence integrity and compliance with relevant regulations. This includes conducting a thorough analysis of system logs, network traffic, and compromised files to determine the attack vector, the scope of data exfiltration, and the timeline of the incident. The investigator must document every step taken, maintain a strict chain of custody for all collected evidence, and ensure that the investigation is conducted in a manner that is admissible in legal proceedings. This aligns with the principles of digital forensics and the legal requirements for handling digital evidence, ensuring that findings are reliable and defensible. An incorrect approach would be to immediately wipe or re-image the affected server without proper forensic imaging. This action would destroy critical evidence, making it impossible to determine the full scope of the breach, identify the attacker, or satisfy legal and regulatory obligations for breach notification and investigation. Such a failure to preserve evidence directly contravenes the principles of digital forensics and could lead to severe legal repercussions, including fines and sanctions for noncompliance with data protection laws. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on automated tools without manual verification and analysis. While automated tools are valuable for initial scanning and data collection, they may miss subtle indicators of compromise or misinterpret complex attack patterns. A forensic investigator must apply critical thinking and expert judgment to interpret the data, cross-reference findings, and build a comprehensive picture of the incident. Over-reliance on automation without human oversight can lead to incomplete or inaccurate conclusions, jeopardizing the integrity of the investigation and potentially leading to incorrect reporting or remediation efforts. Furthermore, an incorrect approach would be to communicate findings prematurely or inaccurately to stakeholders without proper validation. This can lead to misinformed decisions by management, incorrect regulatory notifications, and damage to the organization's reputation. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured approach. First, secure and preserve the scene, digital or physical. Second, conduct a thorough and documented forensic examination. Third, analyze the findings critically. And finally, report accurately and comprehensively, adhering to all legal and ethical obligations. Question 9. The risk matrix shows a moderate probability of a critical system failure due to an external attack. During the forensic examination of a suspected insider threat, you discover digital artifacts that strongly suggest the external attack scenario is the actual cause of the system failure, and the insider's actions were merely a consequence or unrelated. However, your initial mandate was to focus solely on the insider's activities. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action? Option A. Continue the investigation strictly focusing on the insider's actions, as per the initial mandate, and only report findings directly related to their involvement, regardless of the external attack evidence. Option B. Prioritize reporting the evidence that implicates the insider, even if it is less conclusive, and downplay or omit the findings related to the external attack to avoid complicating the narrative. Option C. Immediately report the findings of the external attack to management, bypassing the formal forensic reporting process, to alert them to the broader security risk. Option D. Thoroughly document and report all findings related to the external attack, including the evidence that exonerates the insider from causing the primary system failure, as part of the comprehensive forensic report. Correct answer is D. Thoroughly document and report all findings related to the external attack, including the evidence that exonerates the insider from causing the primary system failure, as part of the comprehensive forensic report. Explanation. This scenario presents a classic ethical dilemma in digital forensics, specifically concerning the handling of potentially exculpatory evidence. The challenge lies in balancing the investigator's duty to uncover all relevant facts with the potential for a perceived conflict of interest or bias, if they solely focus on evidence that supports a particular outcome. The investigator must adhere to strict professional ethics and legal requirements to ensure the integrity of the investigation and the admissibility of evidence. The correct approach emphasizes a comprehensive and unbiased examination of all digital evidence, regardless of its potential to incriminate or exonerate. This aligns with the fundamental principles of due process and the ethical obligations of a forensic investigator to present a complete and accurate picture. By meticulously documenting and preserving all findings, including those that might seem contradictory to an initial hypothesis, the investigator upholds the integrity of the forensic process and ensures that all parties have access to the full scope of evidence. This approach is mandated by the principles of digital forensics, which require impartiality and thoroughness to maintain credibility and ensure justice. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on evidence supporting guilt, while ignoring exculpatory evidence, represents a significant ethical and professional failure. This bias can lead to a miscarriage of justice, as it obstructs the truth-finding process. Legally, withholding or selectively presenting evidence can have severe consequences, including the suppression of evidence, dismissal of charges, or even professional sanctions. Such an approach violates the investigator's duty to be objective and can be seen as obstruction of justice. Another incorrect approach, which involves prematurely sharing potentially exculpatory evidence with unauthorized parties before a thorough analysis and proper reporting, is also professionally unacceptable. This can compromise the investigation's integrity, potentially allowing the subject to tamper with further evidence or alert accomplices. It also bypasses established protocols for evidence handling and reporting, which are crucial for maintaining chain of custody and ensuring the evidence's admissibility in legal proceedings. This premature disclosure undermines the systematic and controlled nature of forensic investigations. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a commitment to impartiality, thoroughness, and adherence to established forensic protocols. Investigators must be trained to recognize and mitigate personal biases. When faced with potentially conflicting evidence, the process should involve 1. Meticulous documentation of all findings, 2. Objective analysis of all evidence, 3. Consultation with supervisors or legal counsel if ethical ambiguities arise, and 4. Comprehensive reporting that includes all relevant evidence, both incriminating and exculpatory. This systematic approach ensures that the investigation remains unbiased, legally sound, and ethically defensible. Question 10. The efficiency study reveals that the current incident response plan for a financial institution is taking an average of 72 hours to contain a data breach, significantly exceeding industry best practices and regulatory expectations for timely breach notification and mitigation. Considering the regulatory framework for financial institutions in the United States, which of the following actions would represent the most effective and compliant approach to address this situation? Option A. Delay the notification of affected customers and regulatory bodies until a complete understanding of the breach's long-term financial implications can be determined, to avoid premature public disclosure. Option B. Immediately focus on patching the exploited vulnerability to prevent further unauthorized access, and then initiate a detailed forensic analysis to understand the technical attack vector, without prioritizing the immediate notification of affected parties or regulatory bodies. Option C. Implement a reactive security strategy by solely relying on the existing incident response plan and focusing on individual incident remediation, without a broader assessment of systemic vulnerabilities or the plan's overall effectiveness. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to identify the full scope of the breach, affected data, and individuals, and concurrently review and enhance the incident response plan to expedite containment and notification processes, ensuring alignment with relevant U.S. financial regulations. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to identify the full scope of the breach, affected data, and individuals, and concurrently review and enhance the incident response plan to expedite containment and notification processes, ensuring alignment with relevant U.S. financial regulations. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that the current incident response plan for a financial institution is taking an average of 72 hours to contain a data breach, significantly exceeding industry best practices and regulatory expectations for timely breach notification and mitigation. This scenario is professionally challenging because the extended containment time directly impacts the institution's ability to comply with data breach notification laws, potentially leading to significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. A forensic investigator must not only identify the root cause of the breach, but also recommend improvements to the incident response process that are both technically sound and legally compliant. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that prioritizes the identification and remediation of vulnerabilities that led to the breach, alongside a review and enhancement of the incident response plan's speed and effectiveness. This aligns with the principles of due diligence and proactive security mandated by regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI-DSS, which require financial institutions to implement robust security measures and have effective incident response capabilities. A thorough impact assessment will quantify the extent of the breach, identify affected individuals and data, and inform the notification process, thereby minimizing legal and financial repercussions. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the technical aspects of the breach without considering the broader legal and regulatory implications. For instance, merely patching the exploited vulnerability without assessing the full scope of data compromised or the effectiveness of existing response procedures would be a failure. This overlooks the regulatory requirement for timely and accurate notification to affected parties and regulatory bodies, as stipulated by laws such as the GLBA Safeguards Rule, which mandates reasonable security measures to protect customer information. Another incorrect approach would be to delay the notification process to gather more information, even after a breach is confirmed. This violates the spirit and letter of breach notification laws, which often have strict timeframes for reporting, and can be interpreted as an attempt to conceal the extent of the incident, leading to severe penalties. Furthermore, failing to conduct a post-incident review to identify systemic weaknesses in the incident response plan, and instead relying on ad hoc fixes, demonstrates a lack of commitment to continuous improvement and regulatory compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, immediately contain the breach to the extent possible. Second, conduct a thorough forensic investigation to understand the attack vector, scope, and impact. Third, perform a comprehensive impact assessment, considering both technical and legal ramifications. Fourth, consult with legal counsel to ensure compliance with all applicable data breach notification laws and regulations. Fifth, develop and implement remediation strategies, including technical fixes and improvements to the incident response plan. Finally, conduct a post-incident review to document lessons learned and update security policies and procedures. This systematic process ensures that all critical aspects of the incident are addressed, from technical containment to legal and ethical obligations. Question 11. Compliance review shows that a digital forensic investigation is falling behind its projected timeline due to the extensive time required for forensic imaging and initial data triage. To expedite the process, the lead investigator is considering bypassing the creation of a bit-for-bit forensic image of the primary storage device and instead performing a direct analysis of the live system, coupled with a selective manual search for keywords. Additionally, the investigator proposes using a newly developed, in-house script for data extraction, which has not undergone formal validation or peer review, to speed up the identification of relevant files. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of digital forensics and regulatory requirements for evidence handling? Option A. Perform a partial forensic image of the most likely affected partitions and then use the in-house script for data extraction, followed by manual searching. Option B. Proceed with a forensically sound imaging process using validated tools, followed by analysis of the image. Document any optimizations made to the analysis phase, such as employing efficient search algorithms or automated tools, ensuring these are also forensically sound and validated. Option C. Bypass forensic imaging and conduct a direct analysis on the live system, relying on manual keyword searches to quickly locate potential evidence, and utilize the in-house script for data extraction. Option D. Skip the imaging process entirely and focus solely on manual keyword searches across the entire storage device to identify relevant files for immediate reporting. The correct answer is B. Proceed with a forensically sound imaging process using validated tools, followed by analysis of the image. Document any optimizations made to the analysis phase, such as employing efficient search algorithms or automated tools, ensuring these are also forensically sound and validated. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics, balancing the need for thoroughness with the imperative of timely evidence delivery. The pressure to expedite the process, often driven by legal deadlines or client demands, can lead to shortcuts that compromise the integrity of the investigation. A key challenge is ensuring that process optimization does not inadvertently lead to the loss, alteration, or incomplete collection of digital evidence, which could render it inadmissible in legal proceedings. The investigator must navigate the technical complexities of digital evidence handling while adhering to strict legal and procedural requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic and documented optimization of the forensic process, without compromising evidence integrity. This involves leveraging validated tools and techniques that are known to be forensically sound, such as using write blockers to prevent data alteration during imaging, employing efficient hashing algorithms for data verification, and utilizing automated analysis tools where appropriate. Crucially, any optimization must be thoroughly documented, including the rationale for the changes, the tools used, and the validation of their forensic soundness. This aligns with best practices in digital forensics, which prioritize the preservation of evidence integrity and chain of custody. The ECCouncil CHFI curriculum, particularly in its emphasis on proper evidence handling and the use of forensically sound tools, supports this approach. Adherence to established forensic methodologies ensures that the optimized process still meets the rigorous standards required for evidence to be admissible in court, thereby upholding legal and ethical obligations. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves skipping the initial forensic imaging of the source media and proceeding directly to analysis on the live system. This is a critical regulatory and ethical failure because it violates the principle of preserving the original evidence. Live system analysis can alter volatile data, introduce changes to the file system, and potentially destroy crucial evidence, making the collected data unreliable and inadmissible. This directly contravenes the fundamental tenets of digital forensics taught in the CHFI program, which stress the importance of creating an exact, bit-for-bit copy of the original media. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on manual file searching without employing forensic imaging and hashing. While manual searching might seem efficient for finding specific files, it bypasses the essential step of creating a forensically sound image. Without an image, there is no verifiable copy of the original data, and the integrity of any files found cannot be proven. This leads to a failure in establishing a proper chain of custody and can result in the exclusion of evidence due to doubts about its authenticity and completeness. It also fails to capture deleted files or hidden data that might be critical to the investigation. A third incorrect approach is to use unvalidated or proprietary tools for data acquisition or analysis without proper justification or documentation of their forensic soundness. The use of such tools introduces a significant risk of data corruption or misinterpretation. If the tool's methodology is not transparent or has not been rigorously tested and validated, the evidence derived from it may be challenged and deemed inadmissible. This represents an ethical lapse by not employing the highest standards of care and professional diligence in handling digital evidence, which is a core expectation for a certified hacking forensic investigator. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing process optimization challenges should first conduct a thorough risk assessment. This involves identifying potential impacts on evidence integrity and legal admissibility. The decision-making process should prioritize adherence to established forensic principles and methodologies, such as those outlined in the CHFI curriculum. Any proposed optimization must be evaluated against these principles. Documentation is paramount. All steps, tools, and justifications for optimization must be meticulously recorded. When in doubt, the investigator should err on the side of caution and adhere to the most rigorous, albeit potentially slower, methods to ensure evidence integrity. Collaboration with legal counsel or senior forensic analysts can also provide valuable guidance in navigating complex optimization decisions. Question 12. The control framework reveals a potential unauthorized access incident. The primary objective is to determine the scope of the breach and identify the root cause to prevent recurrence. Given the urgency to stop further data exfiltration, what is the most appropriate initial forensic action to ensure the integrity of evidence for subsequent analysis and potential legal proceedings? Option A. Rely on automated security tools to scan the system for malware and generate a report, using this as the primary evidence. Option B. Create a forensically sound bit-for-bit image of the affected system storage media before any live analysis or remediation activities. Option C. Immediately initiate live system analysis to identify active malicious processes and attempt to contain the breach by terminating suspicious services. Option D. Proceed with system cleanup and patching to prevent further unauthorized access, assuming the data exfiltration has already occurred. Correct answer is B. Create a forensically sound bit-for-bit image of the affected system storage media before any live analysis or remediation activities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the need for rapid incident response and the requirement for meticulous, legally defensible evidence preservation. The investigator must balance the urgency of containing a potential data breach with the imperative to adhere to established forensic procedures that ensure the integrity and admissibility of evidence. Failure to do so can compromise the investigation, lead to legal repercussions, and undermine the credibility of the forensic findings. The correct approach, which involves creating a forensically sound image of the affected system before any live analysis or remediation, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the fundamental principles of digital forensics, emphasizing the preservation of the original evidence. By imaging the drive, the investigator creates an exact replica, allowing for analysis without altering the original data. This process is crucial for maintaining the chain of custody and ensuring that any findings can be corroborated and defended in a legal context. It directly supports the integrity requirements often mandated by regulatory frameworks that govern data breach investigations, ensuring that evidence is not tampered with or lost. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate system cleanup without prior imaging would constitute a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This is because it directly violates the principle of non-alteration of evidence. Such an action could be seen as spoliation of evidence, which is a serious offense with legal consequences. It would render any subsequent forensic analysis unreliable, as the original state of the system would be lost. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the principles of forensic science. Another incorrect approach, such as performing extensive live analysis on the original system to identify the breach source before imaging, also presents regulatory and ethical issues. While live analysis can provide immediate insights, it inherently modifies the system's state, e.g., by creating log files, changing timestamps. This alteration compromises the forensic integrity of the original evidence. If the goal is to prove the extent and nature of a breach, the original state must be preserved. This approach risks introducing artifacts that could mislead the investigation or be challenged in court, failing to meet the standards of evidence admissibility. A further incorrect approach, such as relying solely on vendor-provided automated tools for breach detection and remediation without independent forensic validation, is also professionally unacceptable. While automated tools can be efficient, they may not always capture all relevant forensic data or may operate in ways that are not fully transparent or forensically sound. A professional investigator must ensure that the methods used are verifiable and that the evidence collected is admissible. Over-reliance on black box solutions without independent verification can lead to incomplete investigations and potentially flawed conclusions, failing to meet the due diligence expected in a forensic examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the incident's potential impact and the legal/regulatory context. The investigator must prioritize evidence preservation as the foundational step. This involves assessing the urgency of containment versus the need for pristine evidence. A risk assessment should be performed to determine the most appropriate forensic methodology. Documentation is paramount at every stage, detailing all actions taken, the rationale behind them, and any deviations from standard procedures. Consulting with legal counsel or incident response managers early in the process can also help navigate complex situations and ensure compliance with relevant regulations and ethical standards. Question 13. Strategic planning requires that when a computer forensic investigator, operating under a valid warrant to investigate financial fraud, discovers encrypted files containing what appears to be child exploitation material, the investigator must: Option A. Immediately cease examination of the newly discovered files and seek an amended warrant or specific authorization from the issuing authority to investigate the child exploitation material. Option B. Proceed to examine the child exploitation material immediately, as the discovery of such serious criminal activity supersedes the original warrant scope. Option C. Continue the examination of the financial fraud evidence as per the original warrant, documenting the discovery of the child exploitation material but not investigating it further. Option D. Ignore the discovery of the child exploitation material and focus solely on the financial fraud investigation to avoid complicating the case. The correct answer is A. Immediately cease examination of the newly discovered files and seek an amended warrant or specific authorization from the issuing authority to investigate the child exploitation material. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics where the initial discovery of potentially incriminating data during a forensic examination raises immediate questions about the scope of the investigation and the legal authority to seize and analyze such data. The challenge lies in balancing the need to thoroughly investigate a suspected crime with the legal and ethical boundaries that protect individual privacy and prevent overreach. Forensic investigators must operate within the confines of legal authorization, ensuring that their actions are justified and do not violate established protocols or laws. The risk of exceeding the authorized scope can lead to the exclusion of crucial evidence in legal proceedings and potential disciplinary action. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately ceasing the examination of the newly discovered data and seeking clarification or an amended warrant/authorization from the relevant legal authority. This upholds the principle of lawful authority, which is paramount in digital forensics. By stopping the unauthorized examination and seeking proper legal guidance, the investigator demonstrates adherence to legal frameworks and respects the privacy rights of the individual or entity under investigation. This aligns with the core tenets of digital forensic practice, which emphasize evidence integrity and admissibility, both of which are jeopardized by unauthorized data access. The ECCouncil CHFI curriculum stresses the importance of operating within legal boundaries, and this approach directly reflects that principle. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing the examination of the newly discovered data without proper authorization constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It represents a violation of privacy laws and potentially exceeds the scope of the original warrant or investigative mandate. This action could lead to the inadmissibility of any evidence derived from the unauthorized examination, undermining the entire investigation. Furthermore, it demonstrates a disregard for legal due process and could result in civil or criminal penalties for the investigator and the organization they represent. Failing to document the discovery of the new data and proceeding with the original scope of the investigation is also a critical failure. While it might seem like avoiding a legal hurdle, it is a dereliction of duty. Proper documentation is essential for maintaining the chain of custody and providing a transparent account of the investigative process. Omitting such a significant discovery creates a misleading record and can be interpreted as an attempt to conceal unauthorized actions or findings. Ethically, investigators have a responsibility to be thorough and transparent. Ignoring the discovery and continuing the original investigation without any attempt to address the new data is a failure to conduct a comprehensive forensic examination. While not directly a legal violation in the same vein as unauthorized access, it compromises the integrity of the investigation by potentially overlooking crucial evidence related to the suspected crime or even unrelated criminal activity that falls within the investigator's purview. This approach lacks professional diligence and could lead to an incomplete or flawed investigation. Professional reasoning. Professionals in digital forensics must adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes legal compliance, ethical conduct, and investigative thoroughness. When encountering unexpected or potentially out-of-scope data, the immediate steps should be: 1. Halt any further examination of the new data. 2. Document the discovery meticulously, including the nature of the data and its location. 3. Consult with legal counsel or the authorizing authority to determine the appropriate course of action, which may involve obtaining an amended warrant or specific authorization. 4. Proceed only after receiving clear, documented authorization. This systematic approach ensures that the investigation remains legally sound, ethically defensible, and ultimately effective in achieving its objectives. Question 14. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a comprehensive, forensically sound incident response plan with strict evidence preservation protocols will incur higher upfront costs and require more time for initial containment compared to a rapid, less documented approach. However, the long-term benefits of defensible evidence, reduced legal risk, and compliance with data breach notification laws are significant. Considering the regulatory framework for digital forensics investigations, which approach best aligns with professional and legal obligations. Option A. Implement immediate system shutdowns and data wipes to prevent further damage, assuming that any recovered data will be unreliable due to the severity of the incident. Option B. Prioritize immediate containment and system restoration, documenting only critical actions, and address forensic rigor only if legal proceedings are initiated. Option C. Conduct a thorough, forensically sound investigation from the outset, meticulously documenting all steps, preserving evidence integrity, and adhering to legal authorization requirements before any significant system changes. Option D. Focus on gathering witness statements and anecdotal evidence to quickly identify the perpetrator, deferring detailed digital evidence collection until after initial containment. The correct answer is B. Prioritize immediate containment and system restoration, documenting only critical actions, and address forensic rigor only if legal proceedings are initiated. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the urgency of a potential data breach and the need for thorough, legally sound forensic investigation. The pressure to act quickly to contain damage and inform stakeholders must be balanced against the risk of compromising evidence, violating privacy regulations, and potentially misidentifying the source or scope of the incident. The investigator must navigate this tension while adhering strictly to the legal and regulatory framework governing digital forensics in the relevant jurisdiction. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes the preservation and integrity of digital evidence in accordance with established forensic protocols and relevant legal frameworks. This involves meticulous documentation, chain of custody maintenance, and the use of forensically sound tools and techniques. By focusing on a systematic and defensible investigation, the investigator ensures that any findings can withstand legal scrutiny, supports potential prosecution or civil action, and meets the reporting requirements mandated by applicable regulations. This approach upholds the principles of due process and the admissibility of evidence in legal proceedings. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that focuses solely on immediate containment without proper evidence preservation risks destroying crucial data, rendering subsequent forensic analysis impossible or unreliable. This failure to maintain the integrity of evidence directly violates the foundational principles of digital forensics and can lead to the exclusion of evidence in court, undermining any legal recourse. Furthermore, it may contravene specific data breach notification laws that require evidence of the breach and its impact to be collected and preserved. An approach that bypasses established legal procedures for evidence acquisition, such as obtaining necessary warrants or authorizations, constitutes a significant legal and ethical violation. This can lead to the suppression of evidence, civil penalties, and even criminal charges against the investigator or the organization. It disregards the fundamental rights of individuals whose data may be involved and undermines the rule of law. An approach that relies on assumptions or unsubstantiated conclusions without rigorous forensic validation is professionally irresponsible and legally perilous. Such an approach can lead to incorrect attribution of blame, inappropriate remediation efforts, and false reporting to regulatory bodies or affected parties. This failure to adhere to scientific and legal standards of proof can have severe consequences, including reputational damage and financial penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the legal and regulatory landscape. This includes identifying all applicable laws, such as those pertaining to data privacy, evidence handling, and incident reporting. The next step involves assessing the incident's potential impact and the urgency of containment, while simultaneously planning for evidence preservation. A critical phase is the development of an investigation plan that aligns with forensic best practices and legal requirements. Throughout the investigation, continuous documentation, adherence to chain of custody, and validation of findings are paramount. Finally, reporting should be factual, objective, and compliant with all legal and regulatory obligations. Question 15. Quality control measures reveal that a forensic investigator, upon seizing a suspect's laptop, immediately connected it to a forensic workstation and began copying specific user-created documents to an external hard drive for initial review. What is the most critical flaw in this approach from a digital forensics perspective? Option A. Performing a quick scan for specific keywords on the original suspect drive without first creating a forensic image. Option B. Simply documenting the contents of the drive through screenshots or manual notes without acquiring a forensic image. Option C. Failure to create a forensic image of the suspect's storage media before copying files. Option D. Directly copying files from the suspect drive to a separate storage device without creating a forensic image. Correct answer is C. Failure to create a forensic image of the suspect's storage media before copying files. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics: the potential for evidence contamination or alteration during the initial seizure and preservation phase. The urgency to secure digital evidence often conflicts with the need for meticulous, forensically sound procedure. Failure at this stage can render subsequent analysis unreliable and inadmissible in legal proceedings, undermining the entire investigation. The professional challenge lies in balancing speed with adherence to established best practices and legal requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes the creation of a forensic image of the suspect's storage media. This is a cornerstone of digital forensics best practices, directly aligning with the principles of preserving the integrity of original evidence. By creating an exact bit-for-bit copy, investigators ensure that the original data remains untouched. This process is crucial for maintaining the chain of custody and demonstrating that the evidence presented in court has not been tampered with. This aligns with the fundamental legal and ethical obligations of a forensic investigator to present accurate and untainted evidence, ensuring its admissibility and the integrity of the investigative process. Incorrect approach is analysis. Directly copying files from the suspect drive to a separate storage device without creating a forensic image is a significant procedural failure. This method is prone to altering metadata associated with the files, such as access times, modification times, and creation times, which are critical pieces of evidence. Furthermore, it does not guarantee a bit-for-bit copy, meaning that deleted files or fragments of data that might be recoverable through imaging could be missed. This approach violates the principle of preserving the original evidence in its pristine state and can lead to the inadmissibility of the copied data. Performing a quick scan for specific keywords on the original suspect drive without first creating a forensic image is also a critical error. This action directly interacts with and modifies the original data, potentially altering file system structures and timestamps. Such an action compromises the integrity of the evidence and makes it impossible to prove that the evidence was not tampered with. This directly contravenes the requirement for forensically sound acquisition and preservation. Simply documenting the contents of the drive through screenshots or manual notes without acquiring a forensic image is insufficient for a thorough forensic investigation. While documentation is important, it does not preserve the underlying data in a way that allows for deep analysis, recovery of deleted files, or verification of data integrity. This approach fails to capture the full scope of the digital evidence and is not considered a forensically sound method of evidence acquisition. Professional reasoning. In situations involving the seizure of digital evidence, a forensic investigator must always prioritize the preservation of the original evidence. The decision-making process should begin with identifying the most forensically sound method for acquiring the data. This typically involves creating a bit-for-bit forensic image using write-blocking hardware or software to prevent any modification of the original media. Following acquisition, all analysis should be performed on the forensic image, never on the original evidence. Maintaining a meticulous chain of custody throughout the entire process is paramount. When in doubt, always err on the side of caution and adhere to established forensic protocols and legal guidelines to ensure the integrity and admissibility of the evidence. Question 16. Process analysis reveals a critical security incident where unauthorized access has been detected on a production server, potentially leading to data exfiltration. The incident response team is on standby, but the primary forensic investigator is concerned about the integrity of the live system and the potential for ongoing malicious activity. The investigator needs to decide on the immediate course of action to balance the need for evidence preservation with the urgency of mitigating the threat. Which of the following actions best represents a forensically sound and professionally responsible approach? Option A. Focus on gathering network logs and firewall data to understand the external access points, delaying direct system imaging until the threat is fully contained. Option B. Proceed with wiping the affected server and rebuilding it to ensure no further compromise, assuming the data has already been lost. Option C. Immediately disconnect the affected server from the network and create a bit-for-bit forensic image of its storage media, before any further analysis or remediation. Option D. Initiate a live forensic analysis on the affected server to quickly identify the scope of the breach and gather volatile data. Correct answer is C. Immediately disconnect the affected server from the network and create a bit-for-bit forensic image of its storage media before any further analysis or remediation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics where the integrity of evidence is paramount, but the urgency of a potential ongoing threat necessitates swift action. The forensic investigator must balance the need for meticulous, forensically sound procedures with the imperative to protect the organization from further harm. The challenge lies in determining the appropriate level of intervention without compromising the admissibility of evidence or violating established protocols. The investigator's decision directly impacts the success of the investigation, potential legal proceedings, and the organization's security posture. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased response that prioritizes containment and preservation while initiating forensic procedures. This begins with isolating the affected systems to prevent further data loss or compromise. Simultaneously, a forensic image of the affected system should be created using forensically sound methods. This image serves as the primary evidence source, ensuring that the original data remains unaltered. The investigator should then proceed with analysis on the forensic image, documenting every step meticulously. This approach aligns with the principles of digital forensics, emphasizing the preservation of evidence integrity and chain of custody, which are critical for admissibility in legal and internal disciplinary proceedings. It also addresses the immediate security threat by containing the incident. Incorrect approaches analysis. Directly wiping or rebuilding the affected systems without creating a forensic image is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action destroys the original evidence, making it impossible to conduct a thorough forensic analysis or to prove the nature and extent of the compromise. This violates the fundamental principles of evidence preservation and chain of custody, rendering any subsequent findings unreliable and inadmissible. Attempting to analyze the live system for evidence without first creating a forensic image is also problematic. While some volatile data might be captured, the act of analysis on a live system can alter its state, potentially destroying or modifying crucial evidence. This compromises the integrity of the investigation and can lead to the exclusion of evidence. Furthermore, it bypasses the standard practice of working on a bit-for-bit copy, which is the cornerstone of forensically sound investigations. Ignoring the incident to focus solely on a forensic image without any immediate containment measures would be a failure to address the ongoing threat. While evidence preservation is critical, the investigator also has a professional responsibility to mitigate immediate risks to the organization. This could lead to further data breaches or system damage, which could have severe consequences. Professional reasoning. In situations involving potential ongoing threats and the need for forensic investigation, professionals should follow a structured decision-making process. 1. Assess the immediate threat. Determine the urgency and potential impact of the incident. 2. Prioritize containment. Implement measures to stop the spread of the compromise and prevent further damage. 3. Preserve evidence. Create forensically sound images of affected systems before any significant system changes are made. 4. Document everything. Maintain detailed logs of all actions taken, observations, and decisions. 5. Analyze the evidence. Conduct analysis on the forensic images, adhering to established methodologies. 6. Report findings. Communicate results clearly and concisely, supporting them with documented evidence. This systematic approach ensures that both the immediate security concerns and the long-term investigative requirements are met, upholding professional standards and regulatory compliance. Question 17. Compliance review shows that during a forensic examination of a company's network logs to investigate a suspected data breach, a CHFI investigator discovers clear evidence of ongoing insider trading activities by a senior executive, which is entirely unrelated to the original scope of the investigation. The CHFI has confirmed the authenticity and significance of this new evidence. What is the most appropriate course of action for the CHFI investigator in this situation? Option A. Discreetly delete the evidence of insider trading from the forensic image to avoid complicating the ongoing data breach investigation and potential legal entanglements. Option B. Immediately cease the investigation into the data breach and focus all efforts on gathering more evidence of the insider trading to build a separate case. Option C. Confront the senior executive directly with the evidence of insider trading to understand their motives and potentially resolve the issue internally. Option D. Document the discovery of the insider trading evidence thoroughly and report it through the established internal channels for legal and compliance review, adhering to company policy and relevant regulations. The correct answer is D. Document the discovery of the insider trading evidence thoroughly and report it through the established internal channels for legal and compliance review, adhering to company policy and relevant regulations. Explanation. The scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in digital forensics, where a forensic investigator discovers evidence of illegal activity that is outside the scope of the original investigation. This is professionally challenging because the investigator has a duty to both the client/employer and to uphold legal and ethical standards. The temptation to ignore or downplay the unrelated evidence can arise from a desire to complete the assigned task efficiently or to avoid potential complications. However, a forensic investigator's professional responsibility extends beyond the immediate scope of a case to include reporting all relevant findings, especially those indicating criminal activity. The correct approach, which involves documenting the discovery and reporting it through appropriate channels, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the ethical principles of integrity, objectivity, and professional responsibility expected of a certified hacking forensic investigator, CHFI. Specifically, ECCouncil's Code of Ethics emphasizes the importance of honesty, accuracy, and reporting illegal activities discovered during an investigation. By documenting and reporting, the investigator upholds the integrity of the forensic process and ensures that potential criminal acts are brought to the attention of the relevant authorities, thereby contributing to justice and public safety. This also protects the investigator and their organization from potential liability for failing to report. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the evidence. This constitutes a failure to uphold professional integrity and a breach of ethical duty. It could lead to legal repercussions for the investigator and their organization if the unreported evidence later surfaces and its prior discovery is revealed. Furthermore, it undermines the credibility of the forensic investigation and the investigator. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately contact the individuals involved in the unrelated illegal activity. This is a severe ethical and legal breach. It compromises the investigation, potentially alerts suspects, and could be construed as obstruction of justice or aiding and abetting. The investigator's role is to collect and report evidence, not to conduct parallel investigations or confront suspects directly outside of official protocols. A third incorrect approach would be to disclose the unrelated evidence to unauthorized parties, such as colleagues not involved in the case or external individuals without proper legal authorization. This violates client confidentiality and data privacy principles, which are paramount in forensic investigations. Such a disclosure could lead to legal action and damage the reputation of the investigator and their organization. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the investigator's mandate and ethical obligations. When unexpected evidence of illegal activity is discovered, the investigator should 1. Immediately cease any actions that could compromise the evidence or alert potential suspects. 2. Document the discovery meticulously, including the nature of the evidence, its location, and the circumstances of its discovery. 3. Consult internal policies and legal counsel regarding the appropriate reporting procedures for such findings. 4. Report the discovery through the designated channels, which typically involves informing supervisors, legal departments, or law enforcement as dictated by policy and law. This structured approach ensures that all actions are compliant, ethical, and professionally sound. Question 18. Comparative studies suggest that optimizing digital forensic processes is critical for timely and effective investigations. Considering the potential for vast amounts of data, which of the following strategies best balances efficiency with the thoroughness required to ensure the integrity and admissibility of digital evidence in a U.S.-based legal context? Option A. Implement a phased triage and prioritization strategy, focusing initial analysis on data deemed most relevant based on case objectives and preliminary assessments. Option B. Conduct a full bit-for-bit forensic image of all storage media and then perform a comprehensive keyword search across the entire dataset. Option C. Rely on automated tools to identify and extract all potentially relevant files without human oversight to expedite the process. Option D. Delegate the initial data assessment and evidence identification to junior analysts with minimal case context to speed up the workflow. The correct answer is B. Conduct a full bit-for-bit forensic image of all storage media and then perform a comprehensive keyword search across the entire dataset. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics, balancing the need for thoroughness with the constraints of time and resources, especially when dealing with potentially large volumes of data. The pressure to deliver findings quickly, while ensuring the integrity and admissibility of evidence, requires a strategic and legally sound approach to process optimization. The professional challenge lies in selecting a method that enhances efficiency without compromising the investigative goals or violating established forensic principles and legal standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a phased triage and prioritization strategy. This aligns with best practices in digital forensics, emphasizing the efficient allocation of resources by focusing on the most relevant data first. This methodology is crucial for meeting legal discovery obligations and regulatory compliance, such as those potentially implied by the need to preserve evidence under various legal frameworks that mandate timely and accurate investigations. By identifying and isolating critical evidence early, investigators can streamline the analysis process, reduce the overall time to resolution, and ensure that the most pertinent information is presented for legal proceedings. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of overlooking key evidence due to an overwhelming data volume and adheres to the principle of proportionality in investigations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves performing a full bit-for-bit forensic image of all storage media without any initial assessment of relevance. This is inefficient and can lead to significant delays, potentially jeopardizing the investigation by exceeding time limits for evidence preservation or presentation. It also risks overwhelming the forensic team with data that may not be pertinent to the case, leading to missed critical findings. This approach fails to demonstrate due diligence in resource management and can be challenged on grounds of proportionality and efficiency in legal contexts. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on keyword searches across the entire dataset without a structured triage. Keyword searching is a valuable tool. Its indiscriminate application can generate a vast number of false positives, consuming considerable time and resources for manual review. This can lead to a superficial analysis and a failure to identify subtle but crucial evidence that might not be captured by simple keyword matches. Ethically and legally, this approach may be seen as insufficient due diligence in the investigative process, potentially failing to uncover all relevant evidence. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the initial data assessment to individuals without adequate forensic training or understanding of the case objectives. This introduces a significant risk of misinterpreting data, overlooking critical evidence, or mishandling potentially sensitive information. It violates the principle of maintaining the integrity of the forensic process and can lead to the contamination or mischaracterization of evidence, rendering it inadmissible in court. This approach demonstrates a lack of professional oversight and adherence to established forensic protocols. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a systematic and legally compliant approach to process optimization. This involves 1. Understanding the scope and objectives of the investigation. 2. Conducting an initial risk assessment and data characterization to identify potential sources of critical evidence. 3. Implementing a phased triage strategy to prioritize data based on relevance and potential evidentiary value. 4. Utilizing appropriate forensic tools and techniques for efficient data collection and analysis. 5. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made to ensure transparency and reproducibility. 6. Continuously evaluating the process for further optimization while maintaining the integrity of the evidence. This framework ensures that investigations are conducted efficiently, effectively, and in accordance with legal and ethical standards. Question 19. Benchmark analysis indicates that a critical cyber incident requires expedited forensic examination to support ongoing legal proceedings. To optimize the process without compromising evidence integrity, which of the following strategies best balances speed and thoroughness? Option A. Bypass preliminary data validation checks to accelerate the acquisition of raw data, assuming data integrity will be addressed later in the analysis. Option B. Limit the scope of the forensic examination to only the systems and data types initially suspected to be involved in the incident, based on preliminary reports. Option C. Implement a phased optimization approach, focusing on streamlining initial data acquisition and triage to prioritize the identification of critical evidence, while maintaining comprehensive documentation of all steps. Option D. Reduce the level of detail in documentation for optimized processes to save time, focusing only on the final findings. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased optimization approach, focusing on streamlining initial data acquisition and triage to prioritize the identification of critical evidence, while maintaining comprehensive documentation of all steps. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics, balancing the need for thoroughness with the imperative of timely evidence delivery. The pressure to expedite the process, especially in high-stakes investigations, can lead to shortcuts that compromise the integrity of the forensic examination. The investigator must navigate the tension between speed and accuracy, ensuring that no critical evidence is overlooked or misinterpreted due to haste. This requires a deep understanding of the investigative goals and the potential impact of process optimization on the admissibility and reliability of findings. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased optimization strategy that prioritizes critical evidence identification and streamlined data acquisition. This aligns with best practices in digital forensics, which advocate for a systematic and documented approach to evidence handling. By focusing on optimizing the initial stages of triage and acquisition, the investigator can significantly reduce the overall processing time without sacrificing the integrity of the evidence. This method ensures that the most relevant data is secured and analyzed efficiently, allowing for quicker identification of key indicators while maintaining a clear audit trail. This approach supports the principles of due process and the chain of custody, crucial for the admissibility of digital evidence in legal proceedings. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves skipping preliminary data validation steps. This is a direct violation of forensic best practices, as it risks introducing corrupted or incomplete data into the analysis. Such a failure can lead to erroneous conclusions and render the entire investigation unreliable, potentially jeopardizing legal outcomes. Another incorrect approach is to limit the scope of the forensic examination based on initial assumptions about the nature of the incident. This can result in overlooking crucial evidence that contradicts the initial hypothesis, thereby hindering a comprehensive understanding of the event. A third incorrect approach is to bypass proper documentation of the optimized processes. In digital forensics, meticulous documentation is paramount for reproducibility and accountability. Failure to document the optimization steps and their rationale undermines the credibility of the findings and can be challenged in legal proceedings. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to process optimization. This involves identifying critical stages of the forensic process, assessing the potential impact of optimization on evidence integrity, and implementing changes in a controlled and documented manner. Prioritizing tasks based on their potential to yield critical evidence, while ensuring that all forensic principles are upheld, is key. A structured decision-making process would involve defining clear objectives for optimization, evaluating potential methods against established forensic standards, and conducting pilot tests where feasible. Continuous review and validation of optimized processes are also essential to maintain high standards of digital forensic investigation. Question 20. To address the challenge of preserving the integrity of a suspect's hard drive while enabling thorough forensic analysis, which of the following actions best adheres to established digital forensic principles and regulatory expectations for evidence handling? Option A. Connect the suspect's hard drive to a forensic workstation and directly access and analyze files using standard operating system tools, ensuring to avoid making any changes to the files being examined. Option B. Create a bit-for-bit forensic image of the suspect's hard drive using a hardware write blocker, and then mount this image as read-only on a forensic analysis tool for examination. Option C. Perform a quick copy of all visible files and folders from the suspect's hard drive to an external storage device for analysis, excluding any hidden or system files. Option D. Connect the suspect's hard drive to a forensic workstation and use specialized software to recover deleted files without creating a full forensic image of the entire drive. The correct answer is A. Connect the suspect's hard drive to a forensic workstation and directly access and analyze files using standard operating system tools, ensuring to avoid making any changes to the files being examined. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in digital forensics: the need to preserve the integrity of digital evidence while simultaneously facilitating its analysis. The professional challenge lies in balancing the imperative of maintaining an unbroken chain of custody and preventing any alteration of the original evidence with the practical requirement of making the data accessible for examination. This requires a thorough understanding of forensic best practices and the legal implications of evidence handling. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integrity of the original evidence through right blocking and the creation of forensically sound images. This aligns with the fundamental principles of digital forensics, which dictate that original evidence must not be altered. The creation of a bit-for-bit copy, forensic image, ensures that all data, including deleted files and unallocated space, is preserved. This image can then be mounted read-only for analysis, safeguarding the original evidence from accidental or intentional modification. This process is crucial for admissibility in legal proceedings, as it demonstrates due diligence in evidence preservation. An incorrect approach that involves directly analyzing the original hard drive without employing right blocking or creating a forensic image fails to uphold the principle of evidence integrity. This direct manipulation risks altering timestamps, metadata, or even overriding data, which can render the evidence inadmissible or cast doubt on its reliability. This constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it violates established forensic protocols designed to ensure the trustworthiness of digital evidence. Another incorrect approach, such as analyzing only the visible files on the original drive and ignoring unallocated space or deleted files, is also professionally unacceptable. This selective analysis fails to capture the complete picture of the digital environment and may miss crucial evidence. It demonstrates a lack of thoroughness and adherence to comprehensive forensic methodologies, potentially leading to incomplete investigations and legal ramifications. A further incorrect approach, such as relying solely on a quick copy of files without creating a bit-for-bit image, is also problematic. While it may provide access to some data, it does not guarantee the preservation of all digital artifacts or the exact state of the drive. This method is not considered forensically sound and can lead to the loss of critical evidence, compromising the investigation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, identify the source of the digital evidence and its potential evidentiary value. Second, assess the risks associated with accessing and analyzing the evidence, particularly the risk of alteration. Third, select and implement appropriate forensic tools and techniques, such as right blockers and imaging software, to ensure evidence integrity. Fourth, document every step of the process meticulously, maintaining a detailed chain of custody. Finally, conduct the analysis on a forensically sound copy of the evidence, not the original.